Okay. Vanessa, it's great to chat to you today for She Can. Tell us about yourself and what you do.
So I'm German originally. I moved to New York in '99 to start a communications company, which I did, and after an internship, I convinced my immediate boss to start an agency with me, which took about a month because she thought I was insane. And then we started working with artists on communications and moved into fashion and then expanded into beauty and hired more people and moved offices quite often because it was growing really quickly. We opened an office in 2004 in Los Angeles because people needed West Coast support, celebrities, all these things. And then we opened in London in 2007 and added yet more categories like hotels and wines and spirits and all things luxury really to our client roster. And then eventually we merged our London office with another agency in London called Modus, which is run by a very good friend of mine called Julian Vogel. And 2 years ago we added a sustainability practice to the company, which looking back at the last year was a good move. Yeah, we have about 65 people today. In the US, we have another 20 in London. And it's been a really exciting ride. So this year marks the 21st year of the life of BPCM.
Amazing, Vanessa. I remember when we were all in university. Vanessa, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today? You told us a bit the journey of the agency, but what did you do beforehand? How did you start?
So I grew up in Germany. I went to school in Germany, but I always really wanted to go to school in England. So as soon as I finished my schooling there, I took a year off to learn French because my mother is Belgian, so that was about time, and Spanish, and then I moved to London and went to university there. I first started studying law for a year. It was a disaster. And then I switched to business administration, where I went to the European Business School, which, got poo-pooed by a lot of people. But actually, I think what was really interesting there is the practical experience that the teachers brought to the table. So my economics teacher used to be at Goldman Sachs. My international trade teacher was at a commodities trading firm, and I really enjoyed his course. So I decided I wanted to become a commodities trader after leaving university. And I also grew up with three brothers, and there was this whole, as the youngest and the only girl, there was this whole need to establish myself and show them and everybody else that I can do it too, and I will go into finance. So I then took a job at a sugar trading company called EDNF Man, which was really, really fun, and I did that for 2 years. And then I kind of had an itch. I felt that I hadn't built anything. This was not my company, and then I had to build my own. And then I looked around, and I thought the barriers to entry in PR were pretty low. I didn't have a hugely positive perception of PR, to be honest. But I thought, well, maybe I should learn a little bit about it before I write it off. But if I'm going to do that, I want to add a challenge, and I'm going to do it in New York where I don't know anybody. So I packed my suitcases. I applied for internships. I finally got one at an agency there, and then the rest sort of is the story of the agency. But it's been really fascinating. It's been fascinating to build to build a business from the ground up. It's been really interesting, the great times, but actually more interesting the hard times, and to see how one can get through it. From an accountant who takes all your money to clients that are horrible to you, to journalists that shout at you. There's all kinds of wonderful things that happen in PR, and or a mass exodus because one person leaves the company. All these things that you learn over the years, and that keeps it interesting, right?
Vanessa, I still remember the sugar trading days. I can't believe how far you've got. It's really inspiring. Vanessa, tell us a little bit exactly what your day to day is. You run this agency, it's 65 people. That's a big organization. What is your day to day?
Well, no 2 days are the same. I thankfully don't have to run this agency alone. So I have a partner in LA. I have my business partner who I started with, and then Julian is a partner too. I mean, my days can really vary. It starts with looking at my emails and see what I need to answer immediately, and then it's looking at my to-do list from the day before, as well as the day before that, to make sure that I keep up with the things I have to do. At the moment, we are in a growth in a growth time, so we have to recruit a lot of people. So I'm activating my network to try and find some key roles. And I'm also spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, actually looking at potential candidates. I am also very involved in new business development, obviously. So I will look at which areas we would like to grow further, and then I look at which kind of companies we want to work with, and I'll reach out to them or I speak to them if I know them already. I was just actually, before we hopped on this call, I was reading the newsletters of Business of Fashion and Vogue Business and the New York Times to see A, what's going on, and B, what are the opportunities today. Later on, because I'm in Munich right now, so later on when New York wakes up, I will be in back-to-back Zoom calls with potential new clients, with existing clients, with journalists, with my team. So every day is a little bit different.
Amazing, Vanessa. It seems that really it's sort of every day is a new challenge.
Yeah.
Vanessa, what motivates you to rise to these challenges every day? Or these opportunities?
I think it's interesting because obviously I'm not motivated every day, right? I mean, there's always days where you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to even think about it. But I think you go, like, when you own a business, you go through these phases. And right now, I am very excited. We hired a global head of sustainability, and I see a lot of potential for the agency to grow and do good at the same time, and work with these big companies. We just did a fantastic project for Colgate, for example, where we help them with the messaging around a new product they launched that is basically the beginning of Colgate using less plastic, which makes a huge impact in the world. It's interesting because we work with a lot of smaller fashion brands as well, and when they do things, it's fantastic and it makes an impact. But if a big CPG company decides to cut back on plastic on that level, it makes a huge difference to the market, to the world. So for me, that's really, really interesting. And we just moved into a new office. So I'm motivated to also learn the new ways of working. COVID year has all made us learn very quickly how to work from home. And I think that's here to stay. So, you learn new things every day, and I have to stay on top of it, of the trends and what's going on, and also what's in culture, what people are talking about, what Clubhouse is going to be like. They just hired the head of TED conferences. So that's an interesting indication of where that's going to go, right? And for me, that's all fascinating. And I don't know if I was still a sugar trader, whether I would really be so plugged into what's going on. So I think this is pretty fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's super diverse.
Yeah.
Vanessa, what's your superpower? What makes you so good in what you do?
Good question. I think I have empathy, so I like to understand, where people are in their lives, in business, in whatever moment I catch them in. I've got pretty good intuition for where things are going to go, also where clients can succeed, or where my team can grow. So. And I'm always the one who refuses to take no for an answer, or is at least not scared of getting no as an answer, right? So I will always ask the question, and if I don't get the answer, then that's okay too. But I'm never afraid to approach anybody, and I think that is definitely a helpful tool when you're working in my line of work.
Absolutely. Vanessa, what top tips would you have for other women?
It's interesting, women. A very smart man who is quite traditional gave me a book at some point that's called The Confidence Code. And it's a really interesting book, and it talks about women and how they approach things versus men and how they approach things. And there was a chapter with Christine Lagarde, and Christine Lagarde, we all know, is extraordinary. I mean, she's an unbelievable achiever. But what was really interesting was talking to her about going into a meeting with all men, which happens to her probably on a daily basis. And she said, you have to always be incredibly prepared. So you do have to be prepared, I think, to sit at the table and have yourself be heard. I think I think women can take advantage today of these very powerful networks that have sprung up of other women. And I think maybe 20 years ago, I would have said, you just have to go ahead and do it. And you will probably not succeed on the first go, but if you keep going, and if you persevere, you manage. But I think 20 years ago, I saw women not helping women. Actually, I was more worried having a meeting with a female CEO than I would be meeting a male CEO, because I felt, and I saw it also in the media, they were not supportive of other women trying to make it work, because I don't know why. Sort of, there might be an interesting sort of biological aspect to it. Today, I think that has changed quite a bit, and I think that women are much more supportive of women. That's obviously the trend right now. And I think you just have to have the confidence. There was another little funny thing in that book, by the way, that said a man and a woman were both given a math test. And after they did the test, they were asked how they thought they did. And the guy said, I aced it, amazing. I mean, got everything right. And the woman said, I don't know. I mean, I've got a good feeling, but maybe, I might have made some mistakes. But, we will see. And in fact, they did exactly the same. But it's that attitude, right? So the amount of times that women say, oh, yeah, I was successful, but there was a lot of luck. A man would never say that. And I think women just have to have this confidence that they are entitled to be there just as much as any man, and they should now tap into these networks that really support other women.
Yeah, I totally agree, Vanessa. Claim your seat at the table. I
Yeah.
think the times of banging on the table are over, but I think you definitely have to claim it. Vanessa,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, and what would your dream be that, where your business or your life goes?
I would like to live in multiple places. I don't want to be just tied to one location or culture. I would like to transform the business into more consultancy, where you really have a seat at the table, as opposed to just communications, where you are still kept at arm's length. I definitely want to grow the business. I believe that sustainability has a huge potential to be at least half, if not more, of the business. And then I would like to also, I've started investing in some companies, so I would like to do more of that, and advise companies, on how they could grow, how they could make more of an impact. So I'm quite interested in sort of taking the next step up.
Amazing. That's super inspiring. Thank you for sharing, Vanessa. Really cool. I mean, you will make it.
Thank you for having me. Always